Hello. In this example, we'll show you how to deploy an app on Google App Engine. The app in question is a simple guestbook app where multiple users can sign the guestbook, and that will be stored in the data store of the Google App Engine. The main focus of this demonstration is to show you some of the features of Google App Engine and how to deploy an app on it. So the first thing is you got to create a folder where your contents will be. Now this is based on a Linux environment, and the runtime that we are going to be using is Python 2.7. So inside the guestbook you have some files that you're going to be creating. These are the source code for your application, web application. Now one requirement of a Google App Engine is to create a YAML file. Now this YAML file that you can see, app.yaml, contains the version number, runtime environment, whether the application is going to be threat safe or not, some handlers, and what kind of libraries are being used in it. So one cool feature about the versions is if Google knows which version is being currently version of the application is being currently deployed, and if it wants to roll back to some previous version, it can using this file. Now guestbook.py contains the logic for your web application. So what it uses is, it uses the web app 2 web server, and it creates the web application using that server to interact with that server. Now where does Google App Engine store its data? It stores it in its own database, which is a non-relational database known as a data store. Now data store's background is based on Google's big table storage, which allows it to easily scale and provides high availability and resilience to data. Now when compared to a relational database, a data store contains kinds for what is the equivalent of tables in a relational database. So, and the main object in question in a data store is an entity. Now entity is equivalent to a row of a table, and each entity is defined by a key which uniquely identifies it, and all the data that needs to be stored is stored in known as properties of an entity. So over here, author and greeting are the kinds. So each instance that is being created of author and greetings will be the entity, and these entities contain the identity and email properties. So these values, these are some values that the user will type, and that will be stored to the data store by using the command put. Alright, so what this does is it creates a request handler using the web app 2 framework, and you can define post, get methods over here, and it uses the Jinja 2 framework for a template engine. Now one more thing is the index.yml file. So how does the data store work? So you define queries in a data store, and those queries are based on indexes. Now these index values are based on the kinds in the data store. So the kind over here is the greeting. So these queries are designed to be run on these specific kinds. Now this can be custom made, like if you wanna, so like as you can see over here, we need to sort the greetings based on the date property, and the direction should be descending, so that the most recent entry should be displayed at the top, with the oldest entry being displayed in the bottom. So this is customizable. You can define your own query in such a manner for Google's data store. The main.css and index.html contains the HTML template. Alright, so to deploy the app now, what you need to do is you need to go to this file. Alright, and over here, see that if I log in with some other ID and then it's going to throw up an error. So this is one of the Google's features that is being used. Once an app has been deployed based on a particular user, no other user can now deploy that app. So over here, when I come, I create a new project, something like demo, and I get the project ID for this project. Now this project ID is something which is very important, because this is what helps, which will remain throughout while you're going to be accessing your application. So when I click on create, it'll tell you that it'll show you a green tick saying that the demo has been created. Okay, this is the dashboard where you can monitor, check logs, and add instances and so on to it, add API keys and so on. Now how do I deploy this? So the command to deploy is, you got to run the script known as appcfg.py and provide the project ID as an argument to it, like this. And then you run the command update, and update requires a parameter which is your folder which contains your application content. So it was guestbook over here. Now when I do that, it checks, it starts compiling, it starts deployment, it checks if it succeeded or not, and once it does, it checks which version is serving. So now this is over here, this is where the version number comes into the picture, so that Google can roll back to previous versions if it wants. Now this takes some time, uploading index definitions. This is one of the drawbacks that we figured out in Google App Engine. Now it says it's done, deployment is done, but if I go and access my application immediately, I would not be able to do it. So to access the application, I would get something like a need index error. Let's see if I get it or not. Yeah, so I get the need index error. It says the index for this query is not ready to serve. So the index for the query was being deployed by, and was being shown by the by the index.yml file. So it takes some time for it to come up in the system. It says, and you can see what kind of index was being was specified. And one thing is, I've set the debug is equal to true in the app in the main file, like this. Now this is good if you want to run it on local system, but it's not good if you want to deploy your app on Google App Engine, because it shows you a traceback of all the calls that are being made in your system, and that is a security risk. So this is one. So alright, so now as you can see, the application has loaded after 2-3 minutes. So that's one lag between deploying the application and seeing it in action. So this is how it happens. One feature is the login feature. Now I can say I can use the Google accounts to authenticate each user. So if I click on allow, and if I write, hey, this is my first entry, and if I sign you can see, hey, this is my first entry, written over here. Now I can create a new, so if I log out, and if I just write, well, this is my entry, you can see an anonymous person node. So likewise, you can see a timeline of all the guestbook entries that are being written. So these entries, along with the name and author, are stored in the data store. So this is the demo for this example, and over here you can see a lot of statistics. Such as these many number of requests have come up, and like most number of requests are being over here, monitoring and API logs and so on. So Google provides you with all that over here. Thank you.